I've previously covered a collaboration between Apollo Cook Enterprises and the All Japan Kickboxing Federation. But today, I'll be looking at a solo show of the ACE, a promotion founded by kickboxing legend Dale Apollo Cook. The World Martial Arts Challenge took place at the Convention Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma on June 23, 1995, and it was a hybrid event featuring both kickboxing and mixed martial arts matches. As was the case with several galas Cook promoted, it emphasized style versus style encounters and hosted a handful of international fighters affiliated with the Shootboxing and Fighting Network Rings promotions. However, the true selling point was a main event that promised the in-ring return of Cook himself after an absence of several years. Let's immediately proceed to the 8 matches, several of which are surprisingly short but all of which are very hard-hitting. We open with what's apparently a catchweight bout, 2 rounds of 3 minutes each. Like all stand-up matches of the night, it will take place under modified Muay Thai rules. Low kicks, clinching and knee strikes are legal, but elbow strikes are not. It's Lester Phillips versus Randy Katlett. The match is very short, so I won't delve too deep into the fighters' backgrounds, but Katlett is a karate practitioner turned kickboxer who previously competed for a world title and weighs in at 133 pounds. Phillips, 145 pounds, is a student of Dale Cook, the hometown favorite, and is announced as the UKF World Featherweight Champion. Phillips gained recognition for winning the bantamweight title in a brutal 1993 fight with Kung Tran, but suffered such severe injuries that he was sidelined from competition for at least 2 years. While he enters with a significant weight advantage, he may not be the same fighter he was a few years ago. Round 1. The boxers begin by exchanging powerful low kicks until Katlett throws a right overhand that Phillips is able to block. Lester ducks under a right cross before landing a knee to Randy's body, then connects with a roundhouse to the head that sends his opponent to the mat for the knockout. The referee doesn't finish the count, and Lester Phillips is declared the winner after only 46 seconds. As brief as the match is, the fans in attendance are extremely pleased by the explosive performance. The fighters have started off the show excitingly, and it's an accurate teaser of things to come. I don't know what became of Randy Katlett, but Lester Phillips continued to compete until his retirement in the year 2000, and he now works as a physiotherapy trainer. We move on to an open-weight affair, 162 pounds to 190. This is an MMA match contested under the jiu-jitsu rules practiced by the Rings promotion, allowing for knockouts, submissions, and pro wrestling-style rope breaks. The fighters compete bare knuckle and aren't allowed to strike each other in the face with closed fists. Their match is scheduled for 1 round of 10 minutes. The fighter with the decisive weight advantage is Chad Talbert, who's introduced as a Greco-Roman wrestler and might be making his debut in professional competition. His smaller but decisively more experienced opponent is Kevin Nix, a Taekwondo black belt and kickboxer who reigns as the UKF World Middleweight Champion. He's another protege of Dale Cook. Round 1. Talbert immediately closes the distance but is kept at bay with kicks. He hooks his opponent around the waist and very nearly tips him out of the ring before the two are separated. The fighters then exchange palm strikes before Kevin grabs Chad behind the head and sinks a series of vicious knees to the body and face that send him to the canvas. Clutching his ribs, Chad Talbert is unable to regain his feet and the referee waves off the match. Kevin Nix wins via TKO after only 45 seconds, besting Lester Phillips's time and keeping the show extremely fast-paced. This was Talbert's only known excursion into MMA, but Nix's victory wasn't a fluke, and he showed a lot of promise by winning the third Oklahoma Free Fighting Tournament the following year. He's since retired from competition and works as a referee. We return to kickboxing, now in the welterweight division. It's Kiyotaka Kato versus Jane McMillan. There will be 5 rounds of 2 minutes each. McMillan is a Goju Ryo practitioner and weighs in at 145 pounds. Disappointingly, I don't have any information on him, other than that he's a last-minute replacement for Tony Valente. His opponent Kato has been covered in a previous video, but without repeating too much information, he's currently a 4-time world karate champion and representative of the Daido Juku school, ostensibly traveling the world to demonstrate the efficacy of his art. Despite his height and weight disadvantage, it's hard not to think of him as the match favorite. Round 1. McMillan fails to penetrate his opponent's defenses from a distance before Kato comes in with low kicks and knees and throws him to the canvas. McMillan circles defensively before landing an unintentional low blow during a clinch. Kato ducks beneath a right cross and lands a hook to the ribs that immediately knocks the wind out of McMillan, who blocks a subsequent roundhouse kick but still falls down of his own accord. Clearly hurt, he still manages to return to the fight, and the audience cheers his fighting spirit. However, a glancing kick to the shoulder is enough to make him sink back to his knees in a slip. A big roundhouse to the head causes him to fall again, but he grabs onto Kato and they both go down for another slip. Jane defends desperately when Kato grabs him in a knee-filled clinch before going down from another roundhouse kick right as the bell sounds. This has become the first match to exceed a single round, but it couldn't have gone better for Kiyotaka Kato. There seems to be little hope left for Jane McMillan, who will need to dig deep to survive another onslaught from his opponent. Round 2. McMillan looks sloppy and awkward as he fights from a distance and falls down of his own accord after being clinched. He rallies enough to deliver some slightly more decisive strikes, but he crumbles following a low kick. Despite the referee's encouragement, he's slow to rise and must accept another count. Another low kick sends him down anew, and it's at this point that McMillan realizes he's risking serious injury and concedes the match. Kiyotaka Kato wins via TKO at 1 minute and 6 seconds into the second round. Like any fighter prepared to fill in at short notice, Jane McMillan deserves credit by default, but Kato's strength and expertise are the real takeaways of the match. It's difficult to imagine the bout ending any other way. The Japanese boxer seems to have retired after 2001 and now works as a referee and karate instructor. We're back to MMA rules with the first heavyweight match of the night, Keith Livingston versus Tommy Walkingstick. Livingston, 198 pounds, is a kickboxer by trade who seems to be making his first foray into freestyle competition. He represents the combat Hapkido fighting style, ostensibly a more practical variant of the art with an emphasis on countering grounded techniques. Walkingstick is 241 pounds and another student of Dale Cook, though he's representing combat jiu-jitsu, presumably the style taught by Michael DePasquale. He's the first fighter on the card to have documented MMA experience, having fought Kenji Kawaguchi the previous month in Tokyo, and this alone stands to make him a challenge for his less experienced opponent. Round 1. Livingston strikes with kicks and knees before taking the dominant position when Walkingstick brings the fight to the canvas. Tommy immediately attempts to control his opponent's head and arm but is stalemated by Keith putting a forearm across his neck. They grapple from the closed guard with Livingston increasingly laying in punches to the ribs but failing to make any headway. He finally makes it to his feet, but his strikes to the face do little damage before Tommy unbalances him again. 4 minutes after the initial takedown, the referee stands the fighters up to the applause of the audience. Walkingstick is visibly exhausted and immediately takes a roundhouse kick to the face, but he's more successful in his second takedown attempt. Secure in a full mount, he takes his time finding the triangle choke, and the surprised Livingston quickly taps out. Tommy Walkingstick wins via submission at 5 minutes and 57 seconds. I don't think anyone would call this a masterclass in grappling, but it is the first instance we've seen of the ground game dominating a match. Keith Livingston didn't really seem comfortable with it, spending much of his time trying to get the fight back on its feet, whereas Tommy had the wherewithal to remain calm and take advantage when an opportunity presented itself. The crowd wasn't really here for this type of fight, even booing at one point, but the match is still an interesting look back to a time when mixed martial arts had yet to find a foothold in the United States. This would be Tommy Walkingstick's final competitive bout, but Livingston took part in a Dale Cook MMA tournament the following year. As surely as the sun rises, we return to kickboxing. Heavyweights remain on the card, with Greg Voidachec taking on Wayne Emmons. Emmons is a Kenpo and Taekwondo stylist who comes in with a significant size advantage, weighing in at 238 pounds. His opponent Voidachec is a relatively light 210 pounds but is the decided veteran, arriving as the WKA US Heavyweight Champion. Round 1. Voidachec scores first with a countering jab to the face. The referee breaks up a clinch following a knee to the groin, and Emmons briefly traps Voidachec in the corner with punches and knees. He performs a jumping kick against the ropes that threatens to send his opponent out of the ring, but Voidachec is able to circle and back away from his onslaught. He grazes Wayne's head with a roundhouse kick before taking more punches against the ropes, then takes a stiff left that backs him into the corner. Emmons unloads against the ropes, only for Greg to breach his defenses with a left jab. Visibly stunned, Emmons takes several unprotected punches to the head before going down following a right overhand and a partially connecting knee. He fails to meet the 10 count and Greg Voidachec wins via knockout at 1 minute and 16 seconds. We're back at the quick and brutal style of matchup, and the audience seems happy about it. The fighters packed a lot of action into 76 seconds, presenting a microcosm of the classic turning of the tables showdown. Both boxers continued to compete, with Voidachec turning up in K1 for a match against Musashi and Emmons reaching the semifinals of the first Oklahoma Free Fighting Tournament. The final MMA match of the night sees Tsuyoshi Kosaka taking on Scott Sullivan in what is essentially a rings versus pancrase interpromotional match. Before I begin, please note that Alistair Fleming of the Gentleman's Combatives channel has already covered this bout in much greater detail than I'm about to, so please check out his video linked in the description. At this point in his career, Kosaka isn't the MMA pioneer he'd eventually become but is already well versed in grappling, having been an All-Japan Judo champion before training in catch wrestling under Akira Maeda. Weighing in at 225 pounds, he's competed for Fighting Network rings since 1994, but the company had yet to transition to fully unscripted matches. This should be little comfort for his opponent, since Kosaka's ground game is already solid. That said, 215-pound Scott Sullivan doesn't seem intimidated. Not only had he fought in pancrase, but he's also a thoroughly experienced kickboxer who would win or already had won national titles for shoot boxing and the USMTA, as well as the WKBC World Heavyweight Championship. He's trained for this match with Rickson Gracie in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, in which he'd eventually earned a black belt. We will see how well he handles the grappling specialist. Round 1. Kosaka promptly shoots in with a double-leg takedown to take the match to the ground. He immediately goes for the heel hook but can't cinch it before Sullivan takes top control. Sullivan surprises his opponent with an armbar, but Kosaka counters by rolling to his feet and pressing his weight down. They exchange the dominant position, and while their attempts at applying holds are sloppy, the fast-paced action is keeping the kickboxing crowd engaged. Sullivan achieves a full mount but can't make anything of it before Kosaka rolls him off, and the two battle for the leg lock. The fight ends when Kosaka applies the arm triangle and Sullivan taps out. At 3 minutes even, Tsuyoshi Kosaka wins by submission. There's some confusion in the immediate aftermath, with the referee questioning whether Sullivan's position constituted a rope break, but in the end, he raises Kosaka's hand. The audience, which had been more invested than in the previous MMA match, responds to the decision with mixed cheers and boos, but ultimately seems to accept the verdict. Despite its short duration, this is nevertheless a complete fight, fast-paced with enough back and forth to entertain casual martial arts fans, and it should particularly interest fans of the pioneer era of MMA. Scott Sullivan eventually retired to teach the martial arts in Houston. Tsuyoshi Kosaka returned to Japan and had his first documented MMA match only 2 days later. He went on to have a well-documented career as one of the most influential fighters and trainers in East Asia, the likes of Frank Shamrock and Maurice Smith crediting him with greatly improving their defensive grappling. We're nearing the end of the show and have reached the co-main event, the only women's bout on the card. It's a featherweight match, champion versus champion, Brenda Rouse versus Sugar Miyuki. Miyuki Najima, better known by her ring name Sugar, is 104 pounds and arrives as the shootboxing bantamweight champion. An exceptionally short fighter possessing great technique and stamina, Miyuki made a name for herself the previous year in Japan with a classic match against Kumiko Makawa. Boasting excellent boxing skills and coached at the famed Chakuriki Gym, she plans to upset her opponent on her own turf. It will be a tall order, given Brenda Rouse's even tougher reputation. Weighing 108 pounds and reigning as the UKF World Flyweight Champion, I believe she enters undefeated and with equally strong boxing potential. Rouse is the preeminent Oklahoman in the women's division at this time, and it's really no surprise that she'd go on to make a name for herself in other sports. But tonight it's all about furthering international competition in women's kickboxing. Round 1. Rouse promptly takes the aggressor's position, fighting from a distance with kicks while countering Miyuki's punches. The Japanese boxer throws a big combination from the ropes that causes her opponent to back off, but Rouse returns the damage with a painful low kick. Miyuki frequently fails to close with her own kicks before absorbing a roundhouse to the head. She manages to keep from being trapped in the corner but continues fighting defensively until the bell rings. Round 2. Miyuki changes tactic, opting to bait her opponent by shifting the distance before counter-striking. Rouse catches her with a left hook, but Miyuki ducks out of the way of a big haymaker. She throws a series of punches to the head and shoulder before Rouse stops her with a jab to the chin, but the Japanese boxer seems to get the best of a subsequent standing exchange. Brenda connects with a left hook, but Miyuki stays on top of her with a slew of punches. The action skips to round 4, where Miyuki continues to stick and move, at one point knocking Rouse back with a furious set of punches. She sinks a 1-2 when Brenda kicks low, then advances with another combination. An attempt to rush Miyuki against the ropes is ineffective, but Rouse appears to connect with a head kick moments later. A test of strength ends with Miyuki barely avoiding a hard left, and the Japanese fighter moves laterally to keep from being pinned in the corner. Round 5. Miyuki comes in for a barrage of punches, but Rouse's defense holds. Miyuki keeps throwing, but Rouse knows to keep her hands up. She upsets another combination, then hits a hard left jab to the nose that stuns her opponent. She pushes Miyuki against the ropes with a countering left, and even though the bantamweight champ keeps moving, she still catches at least one punch to the face whenever Rouse closes the distance. A left straight to the forehead sends Miyuki tottering, but she keeps her feet as Rouse lays in relentlessly for the remaining seconds. An excellent comeback by the American caps what was a very competitive match. Sugar Miyuki lacks the sheer physical power of the higher weight divisions but largely fought a smart, well-planned fight. Of course, Brenda Rouse earned her reputation as the hometown favorite, standing up to some very convincing tactics and refusing to be thrown off her game by a speedier opponent. It seems to be the fifth round that the judges were most influenced by, as they deliver a split decision in favor of Brenda Rouse. It was a hard-won victory, and while it adds to Rouse's reputation, the decision takes nothing away from Miyuki Najima, who still managed to impress her host audience and make an excellent impression. Both she and Rouse continued to kickbox for at least another year, but both competitors were bound for success in pro boxing. Rouse captured the minimum and flyweight titles of the IBA and is currently ranked as the 17th greatest bantamweight in U.S. history. Najima, who reportedly competed in Japan's first professional women's match in 1996, also found championship gold through the IWBF strawweight title, becoming a world champion 2 years earlier than Rouse. We've reached the main event, and for the ACE, it really can't be any bigger. Founder and 5-time world champion Dale Cook comes out of retirement to meet Mark King for 5 rounds in the super middleweight division. Cook was last seen in the ring about 3 years ago competing for Seitokaikan in Japan. A standout athlete and one of the flashiest fighters in the world, he was virtually undefeated as the WKA World Middleweight Champion, but his true claim to international fame was a series of interdiscipline matches wherein he went 4-1 against a series of major stars from Thailand. The biggest of the hometown heroes, the crowd cheers so loudly for him that it drowns out the voice of the ring announcer. His opponent for his return to the ring is the relatively obscure but very promising Los Angelino, Mark King. A black belt in Hapkido and the reigning all-Marine kickboxing champion, King enters with a record of 25-2-1 with 11 knockouts. I haven't been able to find any additional background on King, and while it's admittedly disappointing that Cook wasn't able to secure a higher-profile opponent for his return, King seems to have no shortage of fire and is looking to establish himself with a major win over a legend. It may yet be possible, with the legend being 38 years old and 3 years out of practice. Round 1. In the opening seconds, King lands a roundhouse kick to the head, immediately waking up the former champ. Cook dodges a second roundhouse and grabs King behind the head to lay in with knees. A left jab penetrates King's defenses and knocks him backwards, but he's able to dodge a spinning back kick and block a roundhouse. He punches Cook against the ropes and lands a cross to the face before ducking away from Dale's retaliatory punches. Unfazed, Cook sinks a right cross, lands a showy sidekick, and misses with a hook kick. In the final moments, Mark comes forward with an overhand, only for Dale to counter with a backfist before King takes him down with a tackle. Round 2. Cook's reverse roundhouse kick is blocked, then King ducks underneath an axe kick. Cook sinks a couple of painful low kicks, then catches the incoming King for some knees. Mark attempts to punch his way out of the clinch but neglects his defense in the process, allowing Dale to fell him with a short left hook for a knockdown. He rises, performs an unintentional headbutt during a clinch, and goes down again following more knees from Apollo. While he manages to get to his feet again, he remains on the defensive for the remaining seconds. A fairly even opening round has given way to a dominant second for Dale Cook, who now surely enjoys an advantage of at least 2 or 3 points on the judges' scorecards. Mark King is in serious trouble and will need to regroup effectively if he hopes to turn the fight around. Round 3. A very confident Cook fights out of the side stance before dropping his gloves. King doesn't take the bait. Dale instead amuses himself by throwing a reverse roundhouse to the air, then breaches Mark's defenses with a 1-2 combo. A clinch leads to heavy hooks from King while Cook defends, then Mark is staggered by a left jab when he comes in with his guard open. Cook rocks him with a hook, and while King is able to land one of his own while backing off, Dale isn't fazed and lays in mercilessly with a series of combos. King takes several more strikes before what has to be a very welcome sounding of the bell. With the match now more than half over, Dale Cook has taken firm control and has reached the point in the fight where he is employing his flashier arsenal with greater frequency. Mark King managed to avoid another knockdown, but as Apollo grows more and more confident, the lean, mean fighting machine has become more passive. It's become Cook's match to lose, but at this rate, that's seeming increasingly unlikely. Round 4. Cook shows off with a picture-perfect spinning back kick that sends King against the ropes, then no less than 3 more. He can't connect with the reverse roundhouse or a jumping axe kick, but they delight the audience. The increasingly timid King is knocked backwards with a left jab, and Cook follows up with clinching knees and a downward straight to the head. King ducks under 2 subsequent jabs but catches a hard spinning back fist that sets him up for a knee and a standing 8 count. Round 5. Dale measures his opponent with his gloves down, picking his shots with great discretion. He partially connects with an axe kick and a spinning back kick. Taking the initiative for the last time, King comes forward with a countering combo, but Cook ducks out of the way before hitting back with a body strike and a knee to the head. Cook is brimming with confidence as he winds up his punches theatrically and actually connects with both, leading to another knockdown. A sidekick sends King against the ropes, and Dale barely misses with a roundhouse to the face. When Mark drops his gloves, Cook leaps in with a jumping roundhouse into a back kick to the face. The crowd is electrified. Another spinning back kick connects, then Dale throws a jumping reverse roundhouse before the bell rings. The judges' unanimous decision is a foregone conclusion, 2 of them handing Dale Cook a whopping 9-point advantage. It's about as dominant of a comeback as anyone could make, with Apollo in top form and showing no signs of being out of practice. Mark King showed no shortage of toughness, but a combination of passivity and lack of strategy following his initial knockdowns made him an easy opponent. However, he can take some pride in having broken his opponent's knuckles and forearm during the match. These injuries eventually led to a second, permanent retirement, though Cook had at least one more fight later in the year, winning another world title in the process. To this day, Dale continues to work as a promoter, operating kickboxing, mixed martial arts, and boxing events out of Oklahoma. As a trainer, he's coached such major fighters as Randy Blake, Jerry Seitz, and Maurice Smith. He remains one of America's most influential figures in professional martial arts. With a live airing in the United States and a commercial video release in Japan, the ACE World Martial Arts Challenge seems to have been a triumph in its own time. It's since faded into obscurity, but regardless, at the time of this posting, the matches are all available online and generally worth your watch. Viewed in order, they do a good job of simulating the show's breakneck pace and the general wildness of professional fighting during this era.